Chapter 12. Peril. Jake Stewart runs for his life, pursued by two bloodthirsty killers. It's all the teenager can manage not to be ripped apart by the vicious predators. Nearly 15 minutes ago, Yamura was forced into remission to recover his stamina. It has been the longest 15 minutes of Jake's life. A single claw slash from Rapture could spill out his insides, and he would die in seconds. Were the psychic boy, Peril, able to lock him into a paralyzing gaze, he would be frozen and left an easy target. All Jake can do is pour his instincts and reflexes into evasion as he tries to buy himself enough time for Yamura to rejoin the battle. I can't keep this up, Jake fears, dropping low as Rapture's claws sweep overhead and slice cleanly through a tree. Jake dives forward as the timber collapses, leaving a barrier between him and his opponent. Rapture scowls, lifting the downed tree and tossing it aside. Jake's eyes widen in terror, assuming the tree to have weighed at least a ton. The demon was fun to battle, but you are an annoyance, Rapture hisses. Bring back your other persona, so that I may enjoy this once more. I would if I could, Bowser, but how about you lay off trying to fillet me for a few minutes, and let me recover enough energy to give you the fight you want? Jake shouts, continuing to stay moving, so that Peril is unable to fixate on his location and lock his movements down. Your suggestion is not without promise, Rapture says, considering the offer. Don't even think about it, you idiot, Peril yells. We're here to kill him, not make it a fair fight. Just get out of my way and let me end this. Rapture turns, glaring at the boy. Do not think I have forgotten your earlier cheap shot. I still owe you for that. Peril swats his partner into a line of small trees using only his mind. The reptilian warrior howls with rage, leaping from the debris and charging the boy with a flurry of claw slashes. The two begin battling across the area, and Jake is left stunned and speechless. Not one to look a gift horse in the mouth. Jake kneels into a meditative stance and closes his eyes to speed along the process of recovering his stamina. Holding Rapture in the air by his throat with only the use of his mind, Peril is about to kill his annoying teammate when an inhuman growl vibrates throughout the town. The ground shakes, and black electricity-like tendrils of energy dance across the field. Peril drops his opponent to the ground and turns towards the strange disturbance. Black fire surrounds Jake's still kneeling form as the energy crackles all around him. His hair stands on end and slowly turns an oily black. Claws extend from his fingers, and yet the teen remains calm and in meditation. The intense focus of his trance-like state has successfully allowed him to recover enough energy to bring forth the only one of them that stands a chance at defeating their opponents. With a large explosion, Peril is knocked to his back. The trees all around him burst into flames, and the ground swells out into a deep crater. Jake opens his eyes, which turn red after a few seconds. I thank you for waiting, Yamura says, standing up from the crater. Peril scrambles to his feet and tries to lock eyes with the Sakari, but Yamura vanishes. The boy looks around frantically, attempting to locate his target, but it's too late, as Yamura appears only inches from him. Peril creates a bubble of psychic energy between them to push Yamura back, before he is able to end the boy's life with a single slash of his claws. Damn that Rapture! He had to go and let this guy recover most of his energy, Peril thinks in anger. I'm going to kill that overgrown iguana for sure when this is over. Lifting several cars with his mind, Peril hurls each of them at Yamura. The Sakari evades each object with amazing speed and pursues Peril as the boy backs away. Peril continues throwing cars at Yamura, but begins to feel a deep fear within him as none of the attacks seemed to hit their mark. Screaming, Peril lifts nearly a dozen cars all at once and surrounds Yamura from all sides. Throwing his arms down, Peril crushes his opponent in a single mass of metal death. Yamura drops to his knees as the cars collapse all around him. Having formed a protective current of wind around his body through the Garuda Nastra spell, he's prevented himself from being killed from another attempt by Peril to bury him in wreckage. His abilities are short range, Jake says, remembering how they were able to break free from his grip before. We have to put some distance between us and launch attacks at him from afar. Shaking his head, Yamura replies to his host. My energy is still far too depleted for ranged attacks. I cannot waste what precious little stamina I possess on what you suggest. He can use his parasite to dismantle my spells and other attacks. I do not have the strength remaining to continue fighting at this pace. Peril uses his telekinesis to lift another car and launch it towards Yamura, who rolls to the side, barely evading the 2 tons of raining metal debris. Despite having told Jake the contrary, Yamura instinctively hurls another ball of black energy at his opponent. A car is floated up to intercept the attack, exploding upon collision. This fighter is strange, Peril thinks. His mind is protected from me by deep mental barriers. I can only penetrate the first layer of his mind and restrict his movements. I can tell he doesn't have a parasite inside him, like I do. So what exactly is powering his strength? He forms a shield with 2 more cars to block another desperate energy blast. Something is definitely hidden there, deep behind those barriers. Peril leaps high into the air, sending out psychic fists towards Yamura. The Sakari cannot see nor sense the attacks, and is hit by both. The blows knock him to his back, where he rolls over his side several times. There's no way to counter attacks like that, Jake shouts. We can't see them. We can't even feel them coming. Yamura stands, crimson running down his forehead and into his eyes. Dried blood is matted in his hair, plastering it to the side of his face. We must wait for the perfect opening and end this battle with a single strike. We shall not get a second opportunity, Yamura says. His own confidence is drastically lower than what comes across in his voice. Why do I insist upon giving that boy hope? He thinks. He is nothing to me but a vessel. Yamura hesitates, shaking. Is it my own fear that I wish to quell? Summoning the will to continue, Yamura defiantly stands against the young boy with psychic powers and an alien parasite. A grin spreads across Peril's lips, causing the Sakari to shudder. How is it that a mere human child can instill within me such fear? Am I not better than that? Have I not seen too much, faced so much worse? Yamura's aura combusts around his body into a black flame. The fire energy dances around his body, flickering and waving. Basaia Aginestra, black flame blast, he shouts, holding out his right palm and concentrating the flames into it, while simultaneously calling upon the element of fire and combining it with his energy. More fire magic? Peril scoffs at the idea. He's run out of things to try against me. Releasing the flames, Yamura's muscles bulge, and he screams as the action drains his remaining strength. Peril throws his arms forward and extends his mind outwards with a wall of telekinetic energy. The flames hit the wall, but do not disperse as before. Instead, they spread around the energy wall and back towards the boy's fingers. The black flame technique may be combined with magic, but it is not normal magic, Yamura says, panting heavily and clutching his chest. The black flame is the shadow of the living will of Tiamat, the dragon of chaos. The flames wrap around Peril's fingers, and he screams in agony as the flesh begins to disintegrate. Skeletal fingertips are all that remain within seconds. The flame is not finished, as more fuel remains to be consumed. Panicking, Peril tries to exert his will over the energy, but it has no effect. Bones crumble to dust as the flames creep up towards his hands, nearing his wrists. "So, that was your hidden trump card," Peril says from behind Yamura. A single finger is pressed against the Sakari's head, allowing the boy to access his mind through the barriers. "I'm glad that I was able to see your plans before you could use them against me." Shaking, the former general's will collapses, and he accepts defeat. "I never launched my attack? How could this child be so powerful? He's able to see my moves before they're even executed." Jake forces his own mind to the surface, supplanting Yamura's in its weakened state. While Peril's control is over the Sakari rather than him, Jake is able to pivot with a right hook to the boy's jaw. The blow connects hard, sending Peril sprawling backwards in a somersault. "How about you stop hiding behind that psychic friends bullshit and fight me for real?" Jake growls, balling his fists. An expression of utter confidence spreads over Peril's face beneath his plain-colored mask. Despite his young age, both he and his older brother have been trained in combat and survival by their father. After being abducted and bonded to the GX parasite, the boy's already present skills were greatly amplified. With a burst of speed, Peril seemingly teleports, as Jake is unable to keep up with his movements visually. By the time he realizes the boy's location, he's tagged in the jaw by a straight right jab. Jake staggers, his head filling with a cloudy haze. Pain spreads from his jaw and up his ear canal and the back of his eyes. "You cannot beat him if not even I was capable of such," Yamura says, defeat still hanging over him. When he was most recently beaten, it took Jake, Rusty, Danny, and several police officers to take him down. Not since the legendary Enkidu has a foe so overwhelmingly made him feel inferior in a battle. Jake ignores the defeatist words of his possessing spirit, and instead closes his eyes, attempting to focus all of his awareness on sensing Peril's aura, rather than wasting the energy on trying to see it visually. In his mind's eye, Jake is able to see a brilliant light, which he is more than confident belongs to his younger foe. The light stretches to the left, pulling itself along and leaving a sparkling vapor trail. Jake readies himself, bringing his forearm up and outwards to block just as Peril launches a roundhouse kick. The force of the boy's attack stings against Jake's arm, but he's relieved that he was at least able to block it. Peril pivots, reacting faster than Jake, and hitting him with a second kick from his back leg. Jake's head snaps back and he is almost passed out from the whiplash. Shaking off his disorientation, Jake brings his hands back up in defense, but Peril is already on him with a combo of jabs and an uppercut to the solar plexus. Saliva mixed with blood erupts from Jake's mouth, and he doubles over in pain and lack of oxygen. Peril presses an index finger to Jake's forehead and concentrates his psychic energy into a single point no larger than a pin. "You may be able to transform like us, but without a parasite inside of you, there's no way you can hope to keep up." Peril grins. The tip of his finger glows bright red as his energy becomes ready for release. Behind Peril, Jake senses another spirit approaching quickly. He's focused on me and not paying attention. Peril hears Jake's thoughts and turns, catching Brian by the ankle and swinging him around into a fist as he tries to land a flying kick. Jake rises with an uppercut of his own, delivering the blow directly into Peril's spine. Peril leaps away to recover, his body filled with waves of sharp pain. "Hey, you're the guy that helped me escape from their lab," Brian says, seeing Jake up close for the first time. "It wasn't really my intention. I was just trying to escape myself, and, well, it ended up helping you," Jake replies with a shrug. The last thing he wants is for someone to think of him heroically. Brian laughs uncomfortably. Well, thanks all the same. This guy sure is weird, but he's got to be strong to have taken out several of these mutants already. Peril cracks his knuckles, eyeing the new fighter to step up and challenge him. This is the one that Khan selected for the virtual biosuit. Let's see why he's so special. He can paralyze your movements with his mind, Jake says, still unable to move. The parasite can generate psychic properties? Brian asks his own parasite. Some are able to gain this ability depending on the latent potential of their host. I have not found that ability within you, I am sorry to say. Unsure what to do with this knowledge, Brian steps up beside Jake and prepares to face the final remaining Conco soldier. Move! Don't let him settle on your location. If you stay in one place too long, he can target you, Jake screams, urging Brian to leave. Peril sends a wave of pain through Jake's mind, causing him to shout out in an inhuman shriek. Second barrier penetrated, Peril thinks with pride as he slowly peels away the layers of his opponent's psyche. Brian begins to run around the parking lot, using objects for cover whenever possible. Peril blocks his path, pushing two charred vehicles in front of him before he can move. With a split second of indecision, he is left vulnerable to Peril's gaze. Damn it! Brian finds himself unable to move his arms or legs. He's managed to catch me with his psychic powers. He struggles, but cannot resist the boy's overwhelming ability. Jake feels the boy's hold on him loosen, and manages to move his hand slightly. The change, however, is not enough for him to escape just yet. Yamura, take back over. I think I've figured something out, Jake says, observing the correlation between Peril's weakened grip and his snaring of Brian with his power. He doesn't have the strength to hold three minds paralyzed at once. The second he caught the other guy, his grip on us lessened. I think he's aware of his limitation, but he doesn't realize that there are two distinct minds within this body. His words start to sink in, and Yamura is astonished at Jake's observational skills. I don't think he can maintain a hold on all three of us, but he would never have attempted to get the other guy if he knew he already had two minds under his control. If we switch, I think the shock of the mind he's more focused on being drawn away to the back will give us enough leeway to break his control. Agreeing that the sudden addition of a third dominant mind should free them from Peril's control temporarily, Yamura takes over their body in a flash of blinding light. Immediately, he feels the smothering power of the boy lifted from his mind. Jake's plan having worked, Yamura runs at Peril to counterattack. Peril turns in surprise, throwing his arms out and sending his gaze straight through the attacker to paralyze its motion. Switch again! Jake screams, trying to push his spirit into control. Jake regains his body's functions and finishes his run at Peril, delivering a hard left hook to the face. The boy spirals in the air before bouncing off an overturned car and rolling across the gravel. Brian, too, feels a great weight lift from his mind and stumbles forward several steps awkwardly. You possess two separate minds, Peril growls, crawling to his feet. Blood runs down the child's lips and nose. Is that what they meant by calling you a demon? Peril's eyes lock with Jake's, and he feels the boy attempting to lock down his movements once more. One more time, tag! Jake screams, swapping positions with Yamura. Holding his right arm down to his side and opening his hand, Yamura channels his energy into an orb of black flame. The energy swirls in his palm before he molds it into the shape of a sword and condenses it with the combined will of himself and Jake. Peril focuses on Yamura completely, seeing deep inside and searching for the other presence within. He weaves a psychic net around their minds, binding them together and preventing any further tag-outs. Noticing an opportunity, Brian rushes Peril from the side. Hopping sidelong to dodge, Peril hops to the side to dodge, illustrating that he cannot manipulate a third mind while restricting the other two. Under the supervision of Commander Hajir, Peril showed great promise, During the short duration of time, he was given training before being activated in Clavemont. The commander nurtured and helped the boy to develop his powers quickly, but with more time he could have molded him into one of the greatest fighters the world has ever seen. Even with a lack of time and training, Peril showed more advancement in his power than any previous conscripts. To act as a contingency plan against the projected maximum capacity of Project VR, they needed to push through several more advanced personnel for support. Members such as Rapture, Scarab, and Demolition had years to train. The newest group were not given that same luxury. Peril received only a few months of proper training before being sent into the field, and locally selected subjects such as Pinpoint received even less preparation. If he survives this mission, the boy will become stronger than all of us, Hajir thought, as Peril was sent off on his first assignment with Rapture. Under Khan's direct supervision, Peril was tasked with subduing Brian Rood in the event his parasitically bonded state became uncontrollable. Hajir himself could have acted as this control, but he was too busy leading the extraction efforts of the town's inhabitants. Peril glances to the side as Brian rushes, throwing his left arm out and knocking his attacker back with a surge of telekinetic energy. Brian manages to stay on his feet, skidding backwards until he hits an overturned and blackened pickup truck. "You may be a child," Yumura growls, "but that will not prevent me from pulling your heart out and devouring it." The Sicarii drops the flaming sword into the ground, unable to keep his grip while under Peril's control. "You would not be the first, nor the youngest that I have ever killed." Brian looks over at Yumura with shock and disbelief. Am I really standing side by side this self-proclaimed murderer? His gaze drifts towards the school. Maybe I should just make a run for it while I can, and let these monsters kill each other. Despite the urge, he knows he cannot abandon Yumura. Once left alone, he would stand no chance of resisting the boy's psychic powers, and be killed. As it currently stands, Peril is unable to keep both of them under his control for very long. Even if he did manage to escape, Peril would come after him eventually. Sighing, his choice is clear, even if it is something he feels good about doing. The only way to overcome his psychic ability to control is to keep him overwhelmed and unable to have the time to focus. Spells, Jake says, hoping to have come up with a more effective strategy. I know you can perform 3 or 4 spells. Do you happen to have one more that could get us out of this mess? Yumura responds slowly with a hint of shame in his voice. I'm afraid that my knowledge of magic is quite limited. Simple elemental attacks, such as Agnestra and Garudanastra, evasion spells such as Dambe, and low-level mind control are all that I possess. My sister Inyana was the one trained in the mystical arts as a priestess, while I was instructed in the arts of warfare. All I learned was from the small amount of tricks she taught me while we were younger, and there was less animosity between us. He considers all those spells I've seen him perform as nothing but tricks? Jake wonders. Just how strong is his sister, then? Seeing Jake's posture slump, Yumura shares with him an alternative strategy. My mentor, Ashkelon, did not teach me to be defeated so easily. This child will not claim victory over us. We have seen that he possesses weaknesses, and we must exploit them. Do you have a plan? Jake asks, not convinced by his other's confidence. Or do you think you can overcome him with cockiness alone? In an act that Jake finds more frightening than anything he's ever before seen, Yumura smiles. The black flame sword at Yumura's feet loses its form and begins to swell, feeding off the Sicarii's black aura. Blazing wall, 10 foot high, blocks Peril's vision, and unable to see his target, causes him to break his control. I get it. Jake says as Yumura changes position on the battlefield from where he previously stood. He has to be able to see his victim in order to execute his powers effectively. And now that I have verified this information, we can render his powers useless. A third voice cuts into their conversation as Peril darts straight through the flames and appears just to Yumura's left. Your plan won't work, Peril says, raising his hands to Yumura's ribs and hitting him with a bubble of telekinetic energy. Yumura tumbles through the air before landing hard on his back. Gravel digs into his skin, but he has long forgotten to feel minor pains. Yumura stands up quickly, holding out his hands and drawing the flames into them. Basi ia, aginestra. Peril's eyes dilate, erecting a wall of telekinetic energy to block the flames from touching him. Brian flanks the boy, throwing a right hook to the jaw, triggering his parasite to initiate a metabolic transformation. Brian's fist enlarges on impact, lifting Peril off the ground and high into the air. Seeing a brief window of opportunity, Yumura throws his hands up and visualizes the magical sigils to call forth the element of fire. Combining the fire with his own black energy, Yumura unleashes a wave of black flame directly into Peril while he remains tumbling in the sky, trying to right himself. Consumed by flames, Peril screams in pain and plummets back down to the ground. Landing hard, the wind is knocked from the boy's lungs and he gasps for air. A deep impact crater swells out around him and several underground pipes burst, shooting streams of water up like fountains. Panic begins to overwhelm the boy as his inexperience in battle finally shows through. While having the upper hand, he was calm and calculating. But now as he lies at the edge of defeat, he cannot seem to organize his thoughts or emotions. If you were to survive this encounter, the next time we met I would surely fall to your skill. Yumura lowers a hand to the boy's face as water begins to fill the crater. That is why I cannot allow a next time to occur. Farewell, young warrior. You can't, Brian shouts. He's just a kid. Seeing the expression on Yumura's face, Brian realizes instantly that nothing he can say will deter him. Only one option presents itself. I won't let you kill that kid. Yumura turns his head to stare in surprise as Brian has already triggered a metabolic response from his parasite. Armored scales cover Brian's shoulders and chest, and his eyes have become yellow with only narrow slits in place of pupils. You are making a fatal mistake, Yumura says. I will do whatever is necessary to ensure my own survival. If that means killing this child, then so be it. If you stand in my path, I will not hesitate to strike you down as well. Tired of the killing, Brian has decided he will not allow anyone else to die in his presence today. Against his foe's resolve, Yumura decides that he will eliminate anything or anyone that threatens his survival. They find themselves at an uncrossable impasse, through which only one of their wills shall endure. Yumura, don't do this. He's been fighting against these mutants the same as we have. Think about it. What if there are more of them that are even stronger than Peril or Rapture to deal with? We're gonna need all the help we can get, Jake pleads. Yumura seems immovable in his resolve. Too many times he has seen mercy on the battlefield get that very same compassionate soul killed. When the opportunity arises to permanently remove a threat and prevent it from resurfacing when one least expects it, that opportunity must be acted upon. You may see a child, but I see a killer. The eyes of this boy are the same eyes I have stared into thousands of times. Behind those eyes lies only hatred and a thirst for battle. How many innocents will die should Peril be spared and carry on? Would your conscience be able to support that burden? Yumura refuses to listen, and instead raises a clawed hand up high, preparing to end Peril with a single claw slash. People can change if you give them a chance. He's still young enough to alter the path he's on. I beg you, don't kill him, Brian cries out, shielding Peril with his own body. Do not think that I will not go through you to kill him. Your life matters as little to me as his. I have no concern other than the protection of my own survival. Peril is a warrior, and his pride will dictate that he will seek me out and get revenge for his defeat. It is what I would do. I am not confident that I could best him again, and to avoid that, I will strike you down as well if need be. Brian trembles, only now realizing the darkness within Yamura. Before he thought them both to be good guys fighting against the evil of Konko, but slowly began to see the truth of his makeshift ally. Yamura is every bit a monster as the GX-enhanced warriors. Nothing justifies murdering this child, Brian screams, tears streaming down his face. His personal pain rises to the surface as thoughts of his mother manifest. Willing to kill her own son for scientific advancement. Deborah Root is yet another monster. Does the life of this one child outweigh the lives of all those he would murder if let go? Killing him now would be the most noble thing you could do. Don't argue morals with me. You said it yourself that you don't care who lives or dies other than yourself. Yamura shrugs, conceding Brian's point. True. I'm only interested in my own continued existence. My survival, however, is more beneficial to you than Peril's. I am capable of killing the rest of these bastards, while Peril would only crawl off to rejoin their ranks. If you wish to take down Khan, you will require my aid. I can't trust you. What's to stop you from stabbing me in the back the second you see me as a threat to your survival? Thanks but no thanks, you'd make a lousy partner. So be it. I have nothing to gain in convincing you. I can just as easily crush the rest of these cretins without your assistance. Yamura summons the black flame into his hand and condenses it into a fiery sword. No one will know you stood up to these creatures today. No stories will be told of you, and no statues will be erected in your honor. To anyone researching what occurred here today, you will just be another victim. One more body lying dead in the street for investigators to discover. When it comes down to it, your bravery is counted for nothing. If everything you have done tonight has been for naught. I won't be dying here today. Brian's tears have dried, and he defiantly stands against the Sakari general. I will get past you and find Khan myself. I'll rescue the people of this town and make everyone involved in this disgusting project pay for their crimes. Yamura stares into Brian's eyes, seeing the fire behind them for the first time. Giving a half grin, the Sakari disperses his flames and lowers his hand. The kid is your responsibility now. When he returns to killing, I will seek you out and make you suffer as well for his sins. Yamura turns and begins to walk away from the battlefield. You're leaving? Brian is confused by Yamura's change of heart. I am going for the head of the snake, Yamura replies, not turning to look back. Where I find Khan, so shall I find his liaison to Inyana. These mutants knew far too much about me to have merely been a coincidence. That first attack in the alley proved this to me. There I sensed traces of Inyana's presence. So if we track down her errand boy, we can find out where Inyana herself is holed up, Jake says, following Yamura's line of thought. When we find Inyana, she will find no weakness in me as has been displayed here tonight. My sister will die at my hands this time. Brian blinks in confusion as Yamura continues to walk. Suddenly, Peril's eyes snap open and he sits up. Throwing both hands out in front of him, Peril releases a wave of powerful psychic energy into the minds of his opponents. Quickly mutating to protect its host from the boy's power, Brian's parasite covers the teen's eyes and brain with a chitinous, bony film. The psychic wave bounces off Peril and knocks him to his back. Yamura turns, unable to defend against the attack in time, as the psychic energy slams into him full force. The Sakari's hair drops down, losing its oily sheen, and Yamura's eyes roll back into his head. Dropping to his knees and collapsing in a heap. Not even Jake is left conscious from the attack. Peril's chest heaves as he lowers his hands. Sentimental idiot. You should have killed me when he had the chance. What are you doing? This was your chance to live. What is wrong with you, kid? Brian screams, hopping to his feet. Peril is annoyed that his psychic hull was unable to remove both enemies from his path. Damn it. Why did I have to let my emotions get the best of me? Brian chastises himself. Now that other guy is KO'd and I have to fight Peril on my own. Peril rushes Brian with a flurry of quick punches, but neither fighter is in top form. Both fatigued and injured from prior battles, each is a shadow of their full power. Blocking with his forearm, Brian throws Peril off balance and counters with a straight jab to the nose. Peril staggers back, blood exploding from his nostrils and blinding him to all else. Brian sweeps the boy's legs out from underneath him and drops into Peril with an elbow to the solar plexus. Peril exhales loudly, forcibly losing all of the air in his lungs. A claw swipes from behind, and Brian drops forward, evading it narrowly as he hears the air being displaced and feels it shift around him. He pivots, snapping a kick into Rapture's direction, but is met by the more experienced fighter's thick tail to block. I wanted to kill Yamura, but you will suffice. Rapture attacks again, stepping wide and arcing his right arm around for a neck-level slash. Brian keeps his enemy's tail in his peripheral, ready for any tricks the reptilian warrior may pull. As Brian dodges Rapture's slash, Peril attacks from his side with a knee. Brian pivots to meet Peril's knee with his own, but is clipped across the face by Rapture's tail. Spinning in the air, Brian lands on his face hard and scrambles back up to his feet just in time to have to sidestep another claw slash. Forced on the defensive, Brian cannot catch his breath. Each time he evades or blocks one warrior's attack, the other is already on him with equally fierce techniques. He continues this dance of evasion, getting nowhere fast. The only thing that Brian manages to accomplish is waste his own energy and stamina. I have to separate them and take them on one by one, Brian strategizes, dodging another claw slash, followed by a kick from Peril. He hooks Peril's leg and pivots with his hip, knocking the smaller fighter into Rapture. Growling, his attack is deflected. Rapture shoves Peril out of the way and resumes their inability to effectively cooperate. Rapture leaps with a diagonal slash, hoping to cleave Brian in two and end their confrontation. Instead of being cut, Brian's parasite hardens the skin of his chest to the same composition as the metal used earlier by Pinpoint. Rapture's claws fail to break through Brian's skin, causing sparks to leap into the air on contact. Rapture pivots, using his momentum to go for a decapitating blow. Brian throws his arm up, allowing the slash to scrape across his forearms, which also harden into the defensive metal. Peril moves to flank Brian, appearing low and to the left. Focusing his energy into his hands, Peril releases it, a large pulse that consumes both Brian and Rapture in a massive explosion. As the smoke clears, Brian stands behind a large metal shield, extending from each of his arms. Shaking, Rapture stands behind the shield, surprised that he was spared the blast inadvertently by his enemy. "You psychopath! That nearly flash-fried me," Rapture screams. "Damn," Peril shrugs. "Guess I was unlucky." "You did that on purpose." "These guys are a terrible team," Brian observes. "I have to get them to turn against each other for them to take each other out." Peril appears behind Brian, whispering in his ear, "That's not going to happen. We may hate each other, but I'm not about to hand a win over to you." Damn it, he heard my thoughts. I keep forgetting he has psychic abilities. Brian turns, molding the metal shields into two curved blades, but Peril is already gone. From behind, Peril is hit by a psychic blast. The blow staggers the team into Rapture's path. The larger fighter lies in wait, bringing both claws up to slash across Brian's exposed chest. Whipping his swords around a block, the slash slams into him with such force that his weapons shatter, and he's sent tumbling backwards. Brian falls onto his shoulders and head, pinching his neck on impact. Peril lifts the teen off the ground using psychically constructed hands. Struggling, Brian is unable to break free of the restraints that exist only in an intangible form. Rapture rushes in for the kill, and Brian is only able to move after expelling his energy outward in a large detonation. Dropping to the ground, Brian is barely able to roll away from Rapture, as most of the blast damage is self-absorbed. Swiping across Brian's torso, the teen is unable to completely evade Rapture's next slash. Blood is flung into the air, and the teen staggers back, holding both hands against the wound. The GX parasite within him focuses on repairing the damaged cells, leaving little else for Brian to use for evasion or defense. Rapture scrapes Brian across the shoulder and backhands him on the way up. Brian staggers and is hit by a combo of quick snap kicks. I'm losing bad here. With this double team, I can't get a shot in. How do I beat these genetic freaks? Maybe I can't. Maybe I'm really gonna die. And thinks in terror. Retreating towards the school. His spirit isn't battle-hardened, and his fear overtakes his resolve, and causes his self-preservation instincts to take over. You aren't running from this fight, screams Rapture, but is suddenly kicked in the face. Jake lands on the pavement as Rapture crashes to the ground. This is my battle, not yours. Now get out of here. I'll handle him, Jake shouts, rejoining the battle. You again? Growls Rapture, standing back up. Yeah, me again, smiles Jake. I came back for a rematch. I'll beat you in one strike this time, instead of two. Sure, whatever you say. Here, let me just put on my game face first, Jake stutters, mocking his opponent. He grins as his hair suddenly stands on end and the tips turn black. Jake's eyes fade into red. Demonic symbols materialize on his arms and neck. I forgot that you can transform too. You did not have a chance to see my full transformation last time. You have no idea of what you're fighting. I am Yamura, General of the Sakari, screams Yamura, his hair turning completely black, and not just the tips, as in the case when he normally takes control. The rumors were true. He really is a demon. I thought they were only religious fairy tales. I get to kill me a real live demon, thinks Rapture, grinning. You won't be smiling for long, screams Yamura, throwing his arms out in front of him. Basa-ia! Yamura unleashes a huge wave of black energy at Rapture. The reptilian warrior leaps above the attack to dodge it. You fell for my trap, shouts Yamura, throwing his arms up at Rapture and unleashing a second blast, even bigger than the first. The attack plows through the warrior, burning off his left arm and half of his right leg. Rapture falls to the ground, smoke rolling off his wounds. You underestimated me because you thought you knew my full power. That was the last mistake you will ever make. You are finished. Way to go, Yamura, you took it to him, Jake cheers on. Rapture begins to laugh. What? Oh, your regeneration? Do you not think that I forgot about that? Go ahead and try to heal. You will find that it will be very difficult. The cells on your arm and leg have been burned. They will not be able to regenerate the missing limbs for quite some time. Rapture's eyes widen in fear. Cheap techniques work on me only once. After that, they lose their surprise value, and I have already formed a counter-strategy. That is why I led an army, and why you take orders from a human in a fancy suit. Yamura freezes, unable to move. Peril limps towards them, blood running down his forehead into his eyes and making him squint. Peril's avatar stands in a black void. Surrounding the boy on all sides is smothering darkness. Despite his training and carefully cultivated ruthlessness, he feels a tinge of fear and isolation. Far in the distance lies the only light within the projected emptiness. Two doors stand before Peril. He pauses, hesitant of what he should do. He has never encountered a mind before with so many protective barriers. Typically, one can enter the mind of another if so gifted, and find the avatar of the person and the mental projection of their inner space. Subduing the avatar of a person has always been simple for Peril, since he has gained the parasite. Most self-projections of people are weak and easily shut down, leaving the victim's entire body unconscious. With Yamura, however, Peril has only found confusing wastelands and two doors. He has been able to effectively cease his opponent's movements with eye contact. Yamura and his host have developed a pesky strategy of switching their consciousness back and forth to break his connection. Hoping to gain a deeper hold, Peril has entered Yamura's mind in pursuit of his true consciousness. One of these doors is likely a trap, Peril thinks, reaching for a door but pulling his hand back slowly. Which one, though? Peril attempts to extend his awareness beyond the doors but cannot pierce whatever force has erected them. Choosing based upon his first instinct, Peril quickly swings open the first door and drops low into a fighting stance, ready to spring into action in an instant. Beyond the door, Yamura's avatar stands ready, awaiting his visitor. The psychic child, Yamura says flatly. His voice betrays no emotion. Peril detects no malice or hatred, and this unnerves him more than anything else. He briefly wonders if the rumors are true. Is Yamura truly a demon? Peril pushes his fears aside and redirects all of his attention to the GX parasite and its mental abilities. Yamura begins to shake, feeling a compulsion to kneel. "You will not subjugate me, child," Yamura growls, fighting against Peril's power. Pushing more energy into his will, Peril continues to try to overwrite Yamura's independence. Shaking, Yamura fights off Peril's influence. Blood runs down the boy's nostrils, and he is nearly snapped out of Yamura's mind. The GX parasite feels its host's desperation. His fear of failure spurs the parasite to further increase energy production. With boosted strength, Peril forces Yamura to his knees. The Sakari's eyes slowly close against his will. "Now!" Yamura screams as his avatar begins to fade. Jake's spirit explodes to the doorway, his fist connecting with Peril's jaw and sending the child flying. Yamura's spirit is restored and he stands up, looking over to Jake with a nod of approval. "Looks like you aren't strong enough to shut down a mind that time shares," Jake grins. Peril crawls to his feet, blood dripping down his lips. Peril retreats from their mind and drops to a knee as the damage inflicted upon his avatar is reflected back onto him. "You are far out of your realm of experience, child," Yamura says, black sparkles of energy leaping from his aura and crackling loudly in the night air. "If I can't beat you psychically, I'll beat you to death with my fists," Peril says, spitting a mouthful of blood onto the grass. Yamura is about to speak when Peril seemingly vanishes. The boy appears at Yamura's side, rising with an uppercut. The Sakari contorts his upper body to dodge and grabs Peril's forearm, delivering a straight jab to his exposed ribs. Peril's mouth opens to release a scream of pain and a mist of blood and saliva. He pivots, kicking at Yamura's face with amazing flexibility. Yamura releases his hold and leaps back to dodge. "One-on-one combat is not a contest that you can best me at," Yamura says. "I have fought thousands of opponents and killed them all. Without magic or special powers, you cannot hope to defeat me." Peril glares at the Sakari, and in his hatred and frustration, his parasite triggers. Spots of dark-colored scales materialize on his arms and face, and Peril's eyes become yellow and thin, slitted pupils. Peril lunges, moving with increased speed. Yamura backs up, unable to see the movement fully in time. 3 long red lines open up across his chest and begin to steadily leak his life-giving fluids. Hissing, Peril's mind becomes increasingly consumed by the parasite. The more GX is used, the more the creature takes control. Prolonged transformations during combat quicken the deterioration of the mind and may result in a reject-like state, a monstrous being controlled by the parasite's based instincts. All higher brain functions become secondary to the rage. Peril again lunges, and Yamura is forced to expel his energy outward in a dual effort to both slow his opponent and propel himself backward. The boy's claws scrape across the ground, splintering the asphalt. Yamura twists while dodging, throwing his momentum into a roundhouse kick. Peril slaps Yamura at the knee with an open palm and extends his leg out to expose his core. Peril thrusts his claw forward into Yamura's chest. Retracting his hands, Peril jumps away and soaks in his victory. Yamura immediately drops to a knee as the puncture wounds in his chest steadily pour forth blood. Relaxing his transformed state somewhat, Peril is able to regain his higher mind functions. His scales pale and fade almost completely, and his eyes remain yellow, yet the pupils return to normal. Rapture watches in disbelief as the transformed boy manages to do to Yamura what he was unable to do in 4 previous battles. Unbelievable. In his transformed state, his reflexes and speed are unmatched. Yamura, don't you dare die on me. We aren't going out like this. Use the last seal Asolair tattoo. We have to hang on and beat these assholes, Jake screams. We cannot win, Yamura replies, relegating himself to their fate. We have failed. Allow our death to be honorable. We've been slain in combat, with one superior to ourselves. No! Knock off this Sakari honor bullshit. Get your ass up and keep fighting. Yamura struggles to a knee, blood still gushing from his wounds. Pressing a hand to his chest, Yamura consumes himself with magic fire and cauterizes the punctures. Stopping the bleeding alone won't save your life. You've already bled out too much to be able to continue fighting me, Peril says. You've lost. Don't let up, Rapture shouts. He has a regenerative ability as well. Do not give him the opportunity to heal. Peril shrugs. You heard the lizard. It's curtains for you.